Welcome to the pilot episode of the Divorce Do's and Don'ts show. The show will be hosted by Lisa Decker, certified divorce financial analyst, real estate and collaboration specialist in divorce, author of the book, How to Divorce Your Spouse, Not Your Money, and CEO and founder of Divorce Money Matters, and this show's producer, Divorcetown USA. Lisa connects those who seek with those who serve, empowering people to move from just surviving divorce to thriving. Her endeavors are designed to inform, empower, and inspire people to live their best life possible now and in the future. Lisa is also a two-time breast cancer survivor who has experienced many of life's detours herself and now helps her clients to overcome the overwhelming times of life with dignity and grace.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Marcella. And I am so excited for us to be here in our premiere show, the Divorce Do's and Don'ts show. And listen, folks, this is going to be an incredible power hour that you'll want to come back to week after week, because we're going to bring you some amazing information that you need to know if you're going through divorce or you're on the other side of divorce. But before we get to that, I want to introduce you to my wonderful assistant, Marcella Kripe. She is an executive assistant and has been part of my team for over 6 years, and I couldn't do this without her. You're going to love her. She is my client care manager, show co-host, magazine editor, and all-around Girl Friday, and she really is all around. Marcella has 10 years experience in family law as a paralegal in a successful Florida practice, so she's seen divorce from every angle, and she, as well as I, advocate lower cost, lower conflict divorce whenever possible. On a personal note, Marcella is an avid reader and part of a book club that meets monthly. She taught herself to knit during the pandemic, and she loves to be outside in nature any chance she gets. And I will tell you, I've seen some of those things she's knitting, and they are amazing. She's also been painting and doing all kinds of great things. So we're going to want to bring you a lot of very important information, but we also want to make this as lively and entertaining as possible, because who wants to just listen to two talking heads drone on? So now about the show. The Divorce Do's and Don'ts show will cover all phases and aspects of the divorce journey, from pre-divorce planning and preparation, and that's not about plotting, planning, to choosing the right way to divorce for you and your family, to financial fundamentals and mental health matters and legal matters, of course, as well as kids and stepkids and ex-in-laws and dating again and starting over, and just about everything in between. We've got you covered here. Our goal is to help you avoid common, costly, and many times permanent mistakes so that you can have a smarter, saner, savvier divorce and thrive well into the future. Our weekly episodes will center on a different theme each month, and we will frequently interview divorce experts, professionals, survivors, and thrivers who share their valuable insights and experience along the way. So
that sounds awesome, Lisa. Show. And thank you for that introduction. What do you have lined up for us today?
Well, today, because it is our first show, I thought it would be appropriate that we talk about how to be smart from the start. And I have created a formula, and I call it the SMART formula. How about that, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look. The S in SMART stands for start early. You know, it's been said that divorce is a process, not an event. And I don't know who quoted that, but it's really good advice, because this is something that can take a lot of time, sometimes lots of it, depending on the complexity of your personal situation. And the most common thing that I hear people say is, I want this over with quickly. Have you heard that, Marcella, in your years?
All the time.
Right? Yes, it's just one of those things. We want the pain to stop. Let's get it done so we can get the pain to stop. And that doesn't always work, folks. This is something you need to take your time. We don't want you to rush through it. Don't rush through it. And don't drag your feet, right? But we do want you to give yourself and your team the time they need to help you get your best outcome. And when is the best time? Well, if you haven't started divorce yet, if you're contemplating, that is the best time. So you're fortunate if you're here and you're listening to this now. The earlier, the better. The more organized you can be before your first meeting with a divorce professional, the more productive that meeting will be, and the more clarity you should receive. And the more organized you get and stay through the process, the more money you'll likely save as well. Now, what if you're in the middle of your divorce already? Well, I want you to know it's never too late. It's never too late to get organized. If you feel like you're in the middle of your divorce mayhem, maybe it's time to take a step back and start fresh by gathering all of the documents you need, making a timeline, and finding the professionals that will serve you best with your particular needs. So that's the first one of the SMART start, the S, start early. Now let's move on to the M. And that is to help you manage your emotions, because folks, you simply cannot make wise decisions from an emotional standpoint. It takes too much out of you and the emotions take over. So for instance, many people get attached to the marital home emotionally, and some cannot afford it. Maybe they can't keep up with the payments. Perhaps they don't qualify for a refi, or maybe there's too many costly repairs. Too often we see people end up with the house being equity rich, but cash poor, and equity will not buy you groceries, folks. You often end up having to sell anyway on the other side of divorce. And we see that a lot. Now, let's move on to the A. A stands for assess your options. There are many ways to untie your divorce knots or your marriage knots, right? Please, when you have a moment, download the divorce roadmap at divorcetownusa.com, and it will explain how to steer yourself to peaceful place and savings lane, and stay away from Bigger Bucks Boulevard and Duke It Out Drive, because we want to help you to avoid those traps. Now, the R is for reach out for help, and not just any help, because this is not the time to do it alone or be alone. We want you to reach out for professionals who can guide you with their expertise. Friends and family are great with their support for you during this time, but they may have emotional ties as well and may not offer the best advice. What happened to your sisters, neighbors, friends, brother may not be your situation. Their attorney may not be best for you. So it's important that you reach out for the right kind of help. And, coaching and therapy during this time is also helpful for you and your kids. This will go a long way to helping you with the letter M, managing your emotions as well. And now we've reached the T in SMART, and you may have realized as we've gone through this formula that the T can stand for it takes a team, because you should have on speed dial a family law attorney, a divorce financial planner, a therapist, a realtor, a mortgage broker, an insurance expert, and someone in tax matters, perhaps, as you go along. The Divorcetown Roadmap also has additional information about this as well. And your core team should also have a solid foundation of a network that they can refer you to as needed. So that's it for the SMART Start formula.
That's some really good information, Lisa, and it's a great acronym, super easy to remember. Do you mind if we take just a little deeper dive into the SMART formula? With that S, you mentioned starting early, and really that it should be in the contemplation stage of divorce when possible. When you mean start early, what exactly do you want them to start with? What's the first thing, let's say, that they should do?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, what we want folks to do, and this will be whether you're meeting with a divorce financial planner, and do find someone who specializes in divorce and finance. It's very different than typical financial planning or investment advising. So whether you're meeting with a certified divorce financial analyst like myself, or whether you're meeting with a family law attorney, and again, specializing in family law is important, you want to have a foundational understanding of the finances, because let's face it, divorce comes down to money and children. And in this regard, we're talking about preparing for the financial aspects. So that would mean gathering anything that has to do with income and expenses and assets and liabilities. What you own, what you owe, what may be owed to you, what comes into your house every month, what goes out as you pay your bills. And getting that foundational information can be quite daunting if you've not handled the finances. So this is a time for you to also get educated yourself. You know, we're not just number crunchers here. When clients come to us, we want them to understand what life is going to look like on the other side. And so we engage people in the process. It's really important, especially again, if you have not been the one that's handled the finances, to understand what it's going to look like on the other side. And that can be very scary. So going through this process of creating, letting your financial advisor, your divorce financial planner help you create a balance sheet. You know, that's going to show what your assets and your liabilities are and your marital net worth. Maybe there's even some separate property in there, something that you owned prior to being married. Okay, sorting all these pieces out, as well as knowing what's it going to look like for income. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom. Maybe you're a working dad that's got executive compensation and you don't know how that's going to fit into things. And this will affect alimony and child support. So that's what you need to start gathering wherever you are in the process. And the other thing, a very important point is, if your divorce is not going to be the more peaceful path and not going to be the more amicable road, then you really need to gather this early, put it on a flash drive or save it in a cloud, print documents and put them off somewhere off site. Because when divorce is mentioned or filed, a lot of times those documents have a way of disappearing, and then it gets very expensive for your attorney to have to go and subpoena documents or, you know, do forensic accounting and things like that.
Excellent, thank you. And I know you have a really great kit that will help our viewers be able to know what information they need. And we'll talk a little bit later about where they can access that kit, download it and use it. Thank you. I wanted to go back to that M again too, the manage your emotions. You talked about not making decisions based on feelings, but on facts. And you also mentioned one of the most common ones that we see, when people just want to keep that house and they can't afford it. And they don't know that they can't afford it. And there isn't any way they would know unless they talked to you or another financial expert in the process. What about, I was thinking of another super highly charged emotional decision, which is parenting plans. Why is it so important that those be done from a factual standpoint and not from that emotion of, I want to see my kids as much as possible?
Sure. I mean, it tugs at your heart. Who wants to be separated from their children? But it is very important that you do take a step back again and try to not only see this through your child's eyes and what is best for them, but that you're working with someone, a coach, a therapist, someone who can help guide you to effective decisions that are going to be best for your family unit. And, working with a therapist or your attorney to get the parenting plan done earlier on in the process is one option that we have seen that can sometimes work well. Because what happens is, when you take the children and you work out the parenting plan, where they're going to be and when and how many overnights. And by the way, sometimes we can use that for tax purposes as well. When there's more than one child, there's an effective way to manage tax consequences with that. Tax planning, I should say. But making sure that the children are not used as pawns is vitally important. So if you take the parenting plan and you can get that done earlier on in the process, maybe even first, then they're out of the equation. Now you can focus on the financials afterwards, and it's less of an emotional strain on everyone.
Excellent
Great
idea.
point.
And it's actually a nice segue into that A part of the assess your options. You mentioned that some people may choose to start with the parenting plan before they do anything else, which would be one option. Can you tell us more about these different divorce options that people now have available to them? I mean, what's really wrong with the old I'll see it court system that everyone's been used to?
Right. The War of the Roses you're talking about, right? Who really wants to go through a long, protracted, money-sucking, sanity-sucking divorce? I don't see anybody raising their hands out there in the world. It takes its toll on everyone. And you should know that the average divorce in America is about $15,000 to $25,000 per spouse to get divorced. And here in Georgia, I can tell you the average time is about 18 months. And so that's a pretty long time to go through this emotional, draining situation and a lot of money. And that is on the lower end. We have seen cases that go into the tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars, because people don't understand what they're getting into when they go to get divorced. The traditional model is you go hire an attorney, they take a retainer, you sign the paperwork, they tell you, we'll take care of everything. And the next thing you know, you're getting, maybe a 20-page discovery request asking you or your spouse is getting the same from their side. You're getting from your spouse's side, your attorney is sending to your spouse's attorney, asking you for documents going back, many years. I've seen a discovery request going back 20 years, 20 years of documents requested. Now the average is probably 3. But still, that's a lot of statements to gather for every month. Phone records, you may be asked to do interrogatories, depositions. You can see how the dollars mount up. We get a lot of calls from people who've spent $10,000 in the first month or so, and they haven't even begun to get into the process. And they realize, oh my gosh, what have I stepped into? And, can you speak to that point right there, Marcella? Because you worked in a family law firm, very prestigious and very respectable. It was not, anybody that was out there fanning flames, as unfortunately some firms do. And it still cost a lot of money.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things for people to realize is that you're going to have to share your financial documents during the divorce process. So when people can work together, like for example, I'm kind of moving us into the R a little bit, but if they reach out to you first and they're willing to work together, it will save them so much time and money because those are documents they're going to have to produce. And so sometimes they hide them or they hold them back. And then eventually, like you said, they get subpoenaed and then they come out anyway. Or there's interrogatories that have to be answered. And every time an attorney files a motion, it costs a lot of money. And those are documents that you're going to have to give anyway. So exactly. I think it's so much easier when people just go into with the mindset of I'm getting divorced. Everything's going to have to be on the table eventually. Do I want to spend a fortune fighting it? Or do I just want to move on and get past this in the most amicable, healthy, mentally healthy way possible? And so this is another area where, yes, people by reaching out to the right professional, whether it's I want to do the parenting plan first, or let's do the finances first, because once those are done, like you said, if you can resolve the finances, usually that's it. There's really not much else to discuss. I mean, it's basically, who's keeping what car and, the odds and ends of the house. So that reaching out part, and people can start to see now how all of these letters are going to have to go together and come together ultimately into that T, which is that divorce takes a team. And I know that when people hear that, because I've heard this, that divorce takes a team, they just see dollar signs. They're like, it's going to cost me a fortune to have an attorney and a financial person and a therapist. But Lisa, can you help us understand why having the right team is such a crucial step to saving time, money, and energy?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a truly important statement, Marcella. Thank you for bringing those points in. We have seen so many people over the years who have started off not really knowing what they're getting into. Like I said, they lawyer up with someone that their neighbor recommended through their sister, cousin, they used, and maybe that was an effective attorney for their situation, but in this case, the person didn't want a contested, long drawn out battle. They just wanted a lawyer to help them get divorced amicably, but they picked the wrong attorney from the start for their situation. And so that ended up costing them a lot of money. It also fanned the flames between them and their spouse, because now their spouse who says, hey, I thought we were going to do this amicably, and now you send me all of these requests, okay, gloves on, let's go. And it changes the whole tone of things. So when people don't realize what they're getting into, it can really set you off on the right track, on the wrong track, excuse me. You can get back on the right track by stepping back and looking at this situation, saying, maybe this isn't the way that I wanted to go. So the other options, the way that people can go, like you mentioned, starting with the parenting plan or starting with the financials, and getting the experts who can help you with those things, can help circumvent some of the angst and the problems, and can help you get the right answers from the right professionals. Look, we don't answer legal questions because we're not attorneys. But attorneys many times don't know the financials. They don't know the tax ramifications. They may not know how things affect your credit. They may not understand how to deal with certain executive compensation, which is very complicated, or pensions, or, the house, for instance. One of the biggest mistakes we see is people who just go to attorneys, and the attorneys don't think to pre-qualify them. They'll be ordered to refinance the house in 18 months, but they didn't get the proper support through alimony to even make that happen. Right. So there's a lot of moving pieces. It's like putting a puzzle together. And when you have the right team, the right legal, financial, and emotional support, you can put the puzzle together with greater ease, allowing each professional to focus on their area of expertise, working as a team to make sure that things go well for you, beginning, middle, and end, and after.
Couldn't agree more. Reminds me of the Vince Lombardi quote when he said, individual commitment to a group effort, that is what makes a team work. So we're talking about a team of professionals, not a group of people working independently to make a bunch of money off of you, but a team, divorce professionals who are going to work together with you, not necessarily for you, and they're going to work together with each other in your best interests. And that's really the value too of having such a solid network like we have, because we know the parenting coordinators that we're going to work with. We trust them. We know the attorneys that we have in our network are going to be attorneys that are low conflict. They don't want to go to court if they don't have to. They're super settlement minded. In fact, some of them don't do litigation at all. Some will, but some don't. They just don't even want that as part of their practice. So I love that idea of having a good solid team will actually condense your divorce down into the most efficient, sanest way possible.
Yes. And money saving. I mean, that, you probably won't even spend as much as you would have if you just gone the traditional litigated route. Maybe you will, Maybe you won't. I can't say because every situation is different.
Yeah.
But even if you spend the same amount of money having a team, you're still in a better light because you've gotten the areas of expertise of all of those professionals. And some of the professionals may not charge you, like a mortgage broker. You're not going to pay that cost out of your pocket to the mortgage broker. It'll be built into your mortgage. A realtor, you're not going to pay the realtor for their advice. It's going to come out in a commission, which you're going to have to pay anyway, most likely, right? So, just don't worry about that, folks. Get yourself the right people for your situation from the start, and you will have such a better go of things. And the thing that I see is that people who do it through our kind of process, this team approach, and have never been divorced before, many times they don't realize how much they've saved in emotional strife and financial hit to their wallets. They just don't realize it because they haven't been down that road. But when we get people who come they're going through a second divorce and the first time around was awful, they can understand and appreciate so much because they have realized the first time around and saying, I don't want to go through it that way again.
Excellent. Well, we're starting to come to the end of this segment. I can't believe how fast the time flew. And wow. I want to thank you again, Lisa, for helping us start SMART. This is definitely a divorce do that everyone should be putting into practice, whether they're contemplating or even if they're already in the middle. Everyone can get SMART anytime during the process. So we want to thank everybody. And before we go, Lisa, do you have any last tips or resources for our viewers today? Anything that we can share with them that will help them start or get SMART?
Well, we love for people to become educated and have resources to reach out to. So we have several gifts. At Divorcetown USA, we have a divorce roadmap and guidebook, and Marcella's going to tell you more about that in a minute. And at divorcemoneymatters.com, that's my primary site where I help couples and individuals. We have a divorce financial fitness kit, which is an invaluable tool with that spreadsheet that will help you get organized that we talked about earlier in the program. So Marcella, can you give them a little bit of information about where to find these things and what's included?
Absolutely. And I'm going to leave this slide up for just a moment so everybody can take a minute to write down the information. But basically, you're going to go to divorcetownusa.com, download the roadmap. Also there, we have articles, professionals, a marketplace of divorce products that we have found helpful, some just for fun. But basically, that's going to be your go-to place all the way through the process. But start with that roadmap if you haven't done so already. It's really going to help you decide which direction you might want to go for your family. The divorcemoneymatters.com free financial fitness kit. It's a download, a workable Excel spreadsheet that's going to help you get your documents in order, get yourself organized. And there's even a list of questions in there that you'll want to have handy when you do meet with an attorney. Also, and finally, we do also have a support group available to anyone. It is available through Meetup, and we meet virtually once or twice a month. And the meeting times are always posted on divorcetownusa.com. So those are just a few of the things that we have for you. And we'll continue to make events and things and products available to you every week on the show. So stay tuned.
Great. And don't forget, they're all free. This is the place. These are the places to go to get resources that can help you steer your life in the right direction and start over fresh and new, and having gone through a difficult life challenge in the best way possible. And we're so glad that you joined us today. Now, if you're here live, we're going to stop the recording for your privacy. To answer questions and discuss matters. So show up next week for the live show and we'll be able to answer your questions too. Thank you so much for being here for our premiere show today. We appreciate you and we look forward to seeing you next week. Oh, by the way, can you tell us who's coming next week, Marcella?
I can. If you take a look at your screen, you will see a picture of the lovely Kathleen Shack, and she will be with us next week discussing emotional self-care during divorce and the holidays. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified discernment counselor, a Gottman couples therapist, and a registered divorce mediator. So she knows her stuff, and she's definitely going to be able to help. So we hope you find this pilot episode of Divorce Do's and Don'ts helpful, and we look forward to seeing everyone next week. Same time, same place, with this topic, emotional self-care during divorce and the holidays. We are committed to helping America and the world divorce better, one family at a time. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to stop the recording now, and we will go to questions.